Today is July 11, 2025. It's Talking Giants brought to you by SeatGeek, and next week is the final full week without the Giants being on some sort of football field until the month of February, of course. I got my training camp tickets. I'm going to see you all there. July 23rd is that first practice. Get excited. I actually think I have some extra tickets. I accidentally got like 4 tickets when I think I only need 2, so I may try and give those away when you actually can transfer them, because as I'm recording this on July 10th, the Giants aren't allowing anybody to transfer training camp tickets yet, and I have my guy Danny Behan needs to transfer me the tickets for the second half of training camp, since I got like the first half. So I'll see you are there. I am sorry if you had issues getting tickets. It absolutely sucks. There's a couple days of the year that I consider like anxiety-inducing days when it comes to work, and like maybe they're out of your control. And training camp ticket day is like always one of them. I'm responsible for less people this year, so I had a little bit less anxiety, but it absolutely does suck because it's totally out of your control. But like for us, it's like, we got to be there. And if we don't have tickets, then we're not being there since you're not credentialed or anything like that. But sorry if you had issues getting tickets. It freaking sucks. The Giants sometimes suck, but you know, it's a good thing that they have it, that it's free and everything like that. But so you can't really complain that much since it's free and they're doing a good thing. They're letting being able to go to like 12 or 13 practices, including that joint practice, is pretty freaking cool. So let me know if you need help finding out any tickets. Tweet at Talking Giants, tweet at me. And if anybody has extra tickets, like, hey, I'm looking for a ticket or I have extra tickets, tweet at the account and we'll always retweet it and stuff like that. Help out other Giants fans get there. How about that? So today what I'm doing, the episode that I want to do is the 5 biggest Giants X factors heading into this year and for the 2025 Giants. Some of these are players, but some of these are storylines, and I initially wanted to do another episode, but the prep for that was taking way longer than I wanted to. I even texted somebody. They may come on. Hopefully they come on. I have a guest come on for like a stat prediction episode. For the first time, I kind of want to give, here's like a stat line, like Russell Wilson's stat line that I think he can reach: 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, Tyrone Tracy, 1,500 yards. I want to give like a full-on prediction instead of just doing an over-under. It's like, all right, I could be wrong, and these guys could only play 2 games or whatever, and I could be really wrong. But I'm liking the prep that's going into, well, why should I think that Russell Wilson should get 3,000 passing yards in 13 games? What is his average? What if the Giants averaged under Brian Daboll passing yards, rushing yards, and receiving? Well, how many yards is Darius Slayton going to get? Malik Nabers, how many sacks is everybody going to get? So I've been enjoying that, like the prep of it, but I also was like, I'm taking a lot of time out of it because I want to get it as right as I could. So we're doing an X Factor, like 5 biggest X Factors heading into the season episode instead right now. And going into it, I was like, damn, man, this is going to be a little corny. I'm not ready to do that stat prediction episode yet. Like I said, somebody may join me. I'm not ready to do that yet. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be corny because this is just like title, thumbnail, play the YouTube game, right? But then I got into it and I'm like, you know what? I like this. I like the conversation that I'm going to have with myself and that I'm going to have with you today. Obviously, like, let's just get this out of the way. Obviously, Russell Wilson is and the quarterback position is the biggest X factor. I'm like, a lot of this is chalk, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to go, yeah. And I know, Dexter Lawrence having a good season is a big X factor for the Giants. Of course, these are just certain storylines and certain players and certain elements that I think are some of the biggest X factors for what could make this Giants season successful. However you may define success, whether that ends, hey, like I said at the start of the show, whether we're playing in February or if simply Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen get to keep their jobs and we feel good and decent about the future. Here, some of the biggest things that I'm thinking about on my head right now. So I guess we'll just get right into it. Andrew Thomas. I consider Andrew Thomas as the biggest X factor and one of the more important X factors outside of the quarterback position. Andrew Thomas is the biggest X factor heading into 2025. And let's talk about it. On this show, I've called him the most important player on the team. Is he the best player on the team? No. Dexter Lawrence is the best player on the team. A guy like Nick Filato came on this show and said, I think Dexter Lawrence is the most important player on the team because even if Dex goes down, what does that defensive line become? And especially the depth behind Dexter Lawrence, which 100% does make sense. I still do consider, because there's such a large sample size of with Andrew Thomas and without Andrew Thomas, throughout his entire career, the offense with Andrew Thomas feels somewhat operable. And then the offense without Andrew Thomas throughout his entire career, basically after 2020, after his rookie year where he wasn't, where his rookie year wasn't that great. And then without Andrew Thomas, it's inoperable and it's unwatchable and it's horrible and it's vomit-inducing, right? So let's talk about this. The record the last 2 years with Andrew Thomas is 6-10, and without him, it's 3-15. Now, that's a little bit of like stats out of context and kind of skewing my narrative a little bit. Also, by the way, like the shirt. He threw out hey, that foot looked good at that Yankee game, right? But record with Andrew Thomas the last 2 years, 6-10. Without him, 3-15. Again, a little bit of like stats out of context since there were so many games last year without Daniel Jones that it's kind of just rude to evaluate an offense that somehow got worse after, like quarterback play got worse after Daniel Jones was released and was benched. But we have talked about for years just how important Andrew Thomas is, why the splits with and without him are significant. And you want to know why like everything is better with Andrew Thomas? I'm going to get into stats and I'm going to talk about some stuff here. You want to know why shit's better with him? Because he's good. He's a good football player, and he does make that much of a difference. Bottom line, kind of end of story there. But let's dig deeper into specifically last year's team with Andrew Thomas. Why, I don't want to say better than you think, but maybe you will walk away saying that the Giants' offense was better than maybe you thought. So let's talk about the first 6 weeks of the season, looking back on it, when the Giants had Andrew Thomas, and their average drive tendencies. And then we'll talk about without Andrew Thomas as well. So through the first 6 games of the season, the Giants were 4th in the NFL in plays per drive. 4th. Plays per drive, the amount of plays that they run per drive, they were 4th in the NFL. But somehow they were 18th in yards per drive. They were 4th in time of possession per drive, but then 26th in the percentage of drives that ended in a score. What does this tell me? Kind of everything that we already know. The Giants were actually decent at somewhat sustaining drives, which may surprise you at how good they were at doing that. But because they weren't explosive, they were 26th in total plays of 20-plus yards in the first 6 games of the season, and as we know, they were awful inside the red zone. So you run so many plays, the drives are they're going to stall without some sort of spark or big play because they're also so bad in the red zone too that drives are going to stall there and you're going to settle for field goals instead of getting touchdowns. They were 16th in field goal rate in the first 6 weeks of the season, which is, hey, that's average, that's good. Again, that's telling you that they're moving the ball and they're running plays and they're doing what they have to do, but they were 29th in touchdown rate through the first 6 games of the season. So they were awful at scoring touchdowns. I mean, it's like they're allergic to scoring even when things are going right. They were also bad in the red zone, in my opinion, because they're so bad at running under center. Tyrone Tracy literally averaged an entire yard more running out of the shotgun versus under center. Like, the Giants just don't have that kick-ass offensive line that I think can push guys off the ball when they're running under center on a consistent basis. So when they actually ran out of shotgun and maybe you're running out of 11 personnel, there's less guys in the box. That's less that the Giants' offensive line had to handle, and that's why I think the Giants' run game was better. Like, I think that's why I think Tyrone Tracy was better running out of shotgun versus under center as well. Now, without Andrew Thomas, what did those drive tendencies look like? They were 28th in plays per drive. They were 31st in yards per drive, 27th in average time of possession, 30th in percentage of drives ending in some sort of score. I don't fully take a lot of stock on the without Andrew Thomas stats because, again, there was so much of this was without Daniel Jones, and yes, the quarterback play did get worse when he was benched and then released from the team, kind of like I said earlier. I do think it's more insightful to actually share and talk about what the Giants offense did well through the first 6 weeks of the season when he actually was there. And bottom line is, Brian Daboll and probably any quarterback back there, they're inevitably going to feel more comfortable knowing their blind side is covered by him and making, maybe even calling for more aggressive play calling and aggressive play calling tendencies. And while they know that he's there, he's an athletic guy that can move in space, and I think he works really well with double teams as well, moving up to that second level in the run game. So we know that Andrew Thomas is good. We know that he's important. I think he's the number one biggest X factor. And actually, believe it or not, through the first 6 weeks of the season, the Giants were able to sustain drives. They weren't able to score. That was still awful, but I'm sure some of that, I probably talked about it as the regular season went last year, but a little reminder, and I'm sure that even surprised some of you at just how they were good at running plays. They were average at getting yards per drive. And they were even average at getting field goals, but they were awful at scoring, awful inside the red zone. And at the end of the day, you don't get wins by almost doing something good. You get wins by actually producing and scoring points and scoring touchdowns. Even with Andrew Thomas, they didn't fully do that, but they got closer, a hell of a lot closer with him than without him. And I think that's been the case for a lot of years now. Andrew Thomas and his health, biggest X factor heading into 2025. Let's move on to number 2. Let's move to the opposite side of the ball. Shane Bowen and the new defensive free agent additions. I kind of put both of them under one umbrella, and you're gonna hear why. I think if the Giants have any sort of fighting chance this year, it's because they need the defense to be an advantage, even if and when the offense isn't carrying their weight. And I thought back to 2023. Towards the end of the season, the Giants, they're in games and they're winning games by forcing turnovers. Obviously Tommy DeVito had his nice little run and Tyrod Taylor played well, but they fight tooth and nail with the Rams at MetLife by forcing turnovers. They forced 6 turnovers in that second Commanders game. 6. The 2023 New York Football Giants, they forced 23 turnovers in the final 8 games of the season. That's almost 3 takeaways per game. They went 4-4 in those games. Now, I think it's unfair to expect any defense to force almost 3 takeaways per game, but they had 15 turnovers forced all of last year. That's just straight up unacceptable, man. It's unacceptable. Bowen's Titans defensive turnover rate in 2023, like when Bowen was with the Titans, it was 31st in the league. In 2022, it was 19th. And in 2021, it was also 19th. So Shane Bowen does not have this pedigree and track record of defenses that force turnovers, but we got to find a line between, okay, forcing 23 turnovers in 8 games is insane. That won't happen again. The Giants went 4-4 in those games, and I think I just used that stretch to show, like, hey, a defense that carries their weight and does their shit, it'll give even a bad offense and it'll give a bad football team an opportunity to win games, right? But there's got to be a middle ground between 15. 15 is just, again, just totally unacceptable. This is where Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland come in my opinion. And this is a high expectation. That's high praise, Nick Cage. But they kind of need to have like a DRC, Jack Rabbit, and James Bradbury type of impact coming in here. Obviously, I just listed 3 corners. Javon Holland's a safety. But I think you get the point when I say those type of guys signed in as free agents. Jack Rabbit from the Rams, DRC from the Cardinals, maybe some other spots, and then James Bradbury from the Panthers. The type of impact that when they came in here, that's kind of the impact that they need to have. Again, high bar. Jack Rabbit Jenkins and DRC in 2016 were on the All-Pro team, second team All-Pro. Obviously, that 2016 team went 11-5, so when you're on a good team, your good players are going to get highlighted and spotlighted. And the 2020 Giants, James Bradbury's first year, they went 6-10. They didn't win the NFC East, so those good players aren't necessarily going to get the shine. If the Giants maybe win the NFC East and they win 1 or 2 more games, maybe James Bradbury is a second team All-Pro corner that year, and he got he would get the attention that he deserved. But like he legitimately did have like an All-Pro, definitely Pro Bowl caliber year. James Bradbury did in 2020. I don't think they had a Pro Bowl in 2020. But that's the expectation for Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. I will say especially Paulson Adebo. Because in our brains, like we're thinking that Javon Holland has this pedigree of forcing turnovers. He didn't have a single interception last year, and I think he has like 3 or 4 career interceptions. Like, he doesn't have like this. He has the resume, I think, of getting his hands on a football and being a playmaker, being versatile, but he doesn't have this resume of going around and forcing all these turnovers. Paulson Adebo, his main trump card is, we're going to force turnovers. I'm going to get my hands on the football and force some incompletions. Paulson Adebo, 7 games last year, 3 or 4 interceptions. That's crazy. He passes defense, double digits. Like, that is the full-on expectation. I mean, I'm even expecting Paulson Adebo to get close to, 20 passes defense and like 20 pass deflections. So, that's the expectation for those guys. And it's on Shane Bowen to put the responsibility on the players that they've invested in to put them in spots that they can be successful and then they can have turnovers. Nate Tice came on the show last year, and I'm still a little mad at him for this. I think maybe I've mentioned this to him, but Nate Tice came on this show last year and was like, I can't tell you how excited I am for Shane Bowen's defense. And we were sitting back and we're like, really? Like, I don't really know what we're all that excited for. It was, he was like the Giants' 3rd choice after Bobby Babich and the Titans defense coordinator, who's really good as well. So Nate Tice comes on the show last year and says, I'm really excited for this Shane Bowen defense. Like, I think he can run a defense that's kind of forward thinking, where, similar to how like Wink Martindale and Brian Flores, like they're doing stuff at the line of scrimmage and they're changing stuff at the last second and they're trying to distract quarterbacks there. Well, Shane Bowen is doing that stuff on the back end where safeties are rotating pre and post snap, and that's kind of like the new wave of kind of where defenses are going. And then we're like, all right, cool. Like, that's what Shane Bowen could maybe bring to the table. And then, hey, you're forcing interceptions, right? You're forcing mistakes if you're disguising stuff pre-snap and then you're rotating a safety. A safety's on, one side of the field and then he's wounded up on the other, and then boom, he's baiting the quarterback into making a throw, and then we're getting an interception. Like, all right, so I got a little excited about that. And then the Giants go into a season with the young secondary. They go into a, kind of willingly going into a season with a bad young secondary that they knew about, like Joe Shane and Hard Knocks. You heard him make jokes like, oh, you guys all go out there and play corner. All right, yeah, Joe, man, it's year 3, and you're making jokes about how bad your fucking secondary is. So they went into the year with Deonte Banks, 2nd-year cornerback, as their CB1, Cordell Flott, who's like a notoriously bad practice, like he's horrible in practice, Drew Phillips as a rookie slot corner starter, Tyler Nubin as a rookie safety, and then Jason Pinnock, who is still somewhat new to the safety position. I think at the time he was in his 3rd year of actually playing safety, but his first time, technically his 3rd time, but one of the first time that he's transitioning to a new system as a Giant. Obviously, he transitioned to a new system with the Jets, going from the Jets to the Giants, but still, I would call Jason Pinnock an inexperienced player at safety, since he just hasn't played it a lot in his football career, despite him being in the NFL. So Bowen talked about that last year. It's like, I don't want to put too much on these guys' plates. I don't want to make things too complicated for them. All right, so that was last year's excuse. I'm willing to ride with that. I'm willing to ride that narrative and ride that storyline, and that's why we go out and we get veteran Javon Holland. That's why we go out and we get veteran Paulson Adebo, playmaker, get the ball in our hands, treasure chest, be a damn pirate, all that stuff. Tyler Nubin, his resume in college was exactly that. I'm going to study. I'm going to be a ball hawk. I'm a versatile safety. He was really good in the run last year. We're expecting even better things about Tyler Nubin getting his hands on a football. It's on Shane Bowen, too, to get these guys in a position to do so, which that'll be the ultimate test this year. Was it personnel last year, or is Shane Bowen just a bad defense coordinator? That's going to be the main thing that we're going to have to figure out this year. And then even going to the front side. Like, turnovers aren't just interceptions. Like, Bobby Okereke has a massive resume of being good at, even being good in coverage himself, but forcing fumbles. Brian Burns, I feel like that could be a guy that could force some fumbles too from, with those quick pressures and coming around the edge. Brian Burns can definitely be a guy that can get more forced fumbles this year, and then it's on the Giants. You gotta fall on them, and then fumble luck is certainly a thing. I think in 2023 they had great fumble luck. Maybe last year, clearly their fumble luck wasn't great last year, in the amount of times that you gotta fall on some balls and shit like that. Clip that, fall on some balls. So Shane Bowen and the new defensive free agent additions for the Giants, I think even more so than the guys that are returning, even more. Abdul Carter, is he an X factor? Yeah, but he's also a rookie. Like, these guys are paid a lot of money. These guys are veterans. They got to come in and they got to contribute immediately. There is no, all right, slow start. Like, let's go, man. You're brought in here. You're highly respected for what you do around the league. Let's go. The Giants' defense needs to be an advantage. And even if the offense isn't carrying their weight, the offense is going to be better. It needs to be better. They need to score more points. But that defense, if this Giants team has a fighting chance with this hard schedule, the defense needs to be an advantage. And the way that they can help being an advantage is by forcing some more turnovers. Do you need to force 3 per game? No. But I think the way that they're able to get negative plays and tackles for loss, which they are good at getting tackles for loss, we know that they're good at getting sacks. If they can couple in more turnovers and making plays on the football, forcing fumbles, et cetera, it could help increase the floor of this Giants defense as well if they can get turnovers. And they're not relying on sacks or somebody making a mistake or, just relying on, teams forcing them on the 4th down and then punting or settling for field goals and shit like that. So Shane Bowen, new defensive free agent additions. Biggest X factor, number 2. And before we get to the next X factor, I want to talk to you about Mando. I have Mando's whole body deodorant for pits, packages, and feet. How do you like that? Invisible spray bourbon leather. I'll tell you, close your eyes and try and envision what bourbon leather smells like, and I guarantee you, yeah, that's what it smells like. That's what it smells like, 100%. When I record, I sometimes schwitz, I sometimes sweat, and Mando's whole body deodorant is 72-hour odor control. It is helping me out. I love it so much, and if there's one thing I'm not messing around this summer, it's my deodorant. Today's episode is sponsored by Mando. Mando deodorant plus sweat controls, built for this season, blocks odor all day, controls sweat, and is powerful on pits but gentle on skin. And this isn't your typical drugstore stick. It's high-performance pit shield, and as someone who's tried it, and I'll tell you, it works. I can tell you this stuff works every time. Pits, thighs, and yes, even those awkward spots. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. And as a special offer for you, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code, Talkin' Giants. Use code Talkin' Giants at shopmando.com. Use 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits. Smell great doing it. Mando. Thanks, Mando. Thanks, Mando. All right, let's talk about X Factor number 3. How about the development of the 2024 draft class? Yeah, no shit. But here's why. Want to know why Joe Schoen was able to keep his job despite me and a lot of other people wanting him fired and a lot of fans wanting him fired? The main reason why Joe Schoen was able to keep his job is because he said, look at this 2024 draft class. We crushed this 2024 draft class. Ignore everything else we did for the first 2 years. Ignore everything. Ignore how Evan Neal is a bust, and ignore how we don't like Deonte Banks, and we question his effort, and ignore how we traded up for Jalen Hyatt, and ignore how we took JMS, and if JMS was gone, we were going to take Jalen Hyatt in the second round. Ignore all that shit. Look at the 2024 draft class. They look really good. Okay, and yes, they do. But an X factor for Joe Schoen's future, for how we're going to view Joe Schoen as a GM, and even Brian Daboll, if they're tied at the hip, right? They also may not be tied at the hip. But how we're going to view Joe Schoen is, how does this 2024 draft class evolve? Malik Nabers, Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, and then you have Darius Mawasu there, too, as more of a depth player. But the front 5, in Nabers, Nubin, Phillips, Johnson, and Tracy, is that 5? Yes, good counting. That front 5, they're like expected to be kind of contributors, and there's major responsibilities and expectations, and if any of them can overachieve, then I think of how cool it would be if Tyler Nubin is that guy with Javon Holland. Awesome. Cool. Like how that can transcend the secondary. Andrew Phillips, if I don't even know, Andrew Phillips, we already know he's legit at stop of the run. Boom. That's already really cool. But if he can make some more plays on the football, this is what I'm a little worried about with Drew Phillips. Like, I was very critical of him. I at the time, I called it my least favorite like top 100 draft pick that the Giants made. And you saw at times, like in that Steelers game, ironically enough, it was Russ that kind of highlighted it. But if Drew Phillips can turn his head and make better plays on the football and like be better when the ball's near him, I think he's good in coverage. Like, I was surprised to see how good he was in coverage. And when the ball's not coming near you, that's a good thing for a corner when your name's not being said. But if Drew Phillips can continue to be an advantage and even get better from what he was last year, Theo Johnson, if he can take tight end 1 and run with it, like, how does that like separate the offense? And Tyrone Tracy, that running back room is going to be really fascinating to see how it develops. But if Tyrone Tracy can kind of take and run with that RB1 battle, if we can log 1,000 yards this year, and logging 1,000 yards isn't in today's game, I don't think, since they're 17 as a rusher and a receiver, I don't think it's all that special to get 1,000 yards. But for Tyrone Tracy as a day 3 draft pick, a guy that's newly converted to running back in year 2, in the shadow of Saquon Barkley, if you can get 1,000 yards, that's pretty freaking cool. And that's the last guy that I have listed here, right? So the development of this class and how this team will perform, it's going to be major, because the Giants as an organization have already said, look at that class. They're going to lead the way. I think Malik, I think we all know Malik Nabers will. I don't have any doubts of that as long as he's fully healthy and fully ready to go. Glad he was running around in San Diego, by the way. But if any of these guys, again, can over-exceed their expectations, that would be awesome. Hot take, right? Hot take. But that's what Joe Schoen is kind of resting his job on the line for. At least in the court of public opinion, how John Mara feels about Joe Schoen is a lot different from, I definitely think, how I feel about Joe Schoen. But in the court of public opinion, you have why Joe Schoen saved his job is because of that 2024 draft class. And ignore what we did the first 2 years. 2024 draft class was right process, right results, and those are going to be the guys. Well, guess what? Now that they're not rookies and maybe they lost, they don't have that rookie shine anymore, there's expectations. Let's perform. Let's see it. Tyler Nubin can't go through a whole nother year where he touches a football once or twice. Like, the best Tyler Nubin play in coverage we got this past year was like a pass deflection that he had in Tampa. If Tyler Nubin goes through a year where he has 0 interceptions and he only touches a football once or twice, that's awful. That's awful, right? Andrew Phillips, I think if he does the same thing that he did his rookie year, I think we view that as good, right? But there were some games where, like that Pittsburgh game, he got targeted. He got picked on. Allowed a good amount of big plays to Calvin Austin in the slot. Theo Johnson. A lot of it was Daniel Jones. I saw that the Theo, I don't want to get the guy wrong, but he was like a fantasy football guy. Compiled all of Theo Johnson's targets, and Giants fans had a lot of fun with, oh my God, look at how bad Daniel Jones was. And yeah, man, like Daniel Jones was throwing the ball behind, and Theo Johnson getting some drops, here and there, and maybe he starts to get cooking a little bit, and then boom, he gets hurt and he's lost for the season. But Theo Johnson puts up similar numbers and a similar stat line to what he did his rookie year on a per game basis. That's bad. That's not good. And Tyrone Tracy, he had a really good 6-game stretch. But if that 6-game stretch that he had between Seattle to Carolina, if that's an outlier and everything after Carolina, and it's very unfair to evaluate anybody after that Carolina game because the quarterback play somehow did get worse even without Daniel Jones. But you had a really good 6-game sample size of Tyrone Tracy, and then besides that, yeesh, it was not good really for anybody. So this 2024 draft class, biggest, I would say third biggest X factor for the 2025 Giants. We know they got to perform, and it's not even like, yeah, no shit, they have to perform, but it's Joe Schoen is the one who's saying, like, I deserve to keep this job because of this draft class. Okay, year 2. Let's see it. Some of these guys have to hit their expectations, and not only hit the expectations they have for Giants fans, but some of these guys got to over-exceed, and it's got to happen. We got to see it. All right, number 4. I have a hard time wording this for biggest X factor number 4. Like, I partially to, you want to get clicks and make people mad, then it's Malik Nabers being a bigger playmaker in 2025. But that's not the right way to word it. So I've rested on the whole Malik Nabers being more explosive is one of the biggest X factors for the Giants heading into 2025. And the phrase that I've said over and over again this offseason about Malik Nabers and one of the goals that I have for him heading into this year is quality over quantity. Malik Nabers had 24 deep targets last year. 5 of them being catches, only 5 of them. And deep is 20-plus air yards, by the way. 5 of them being catches. And only 2 of those plays resulted in plays of 39 yards or more. Now, if you look at just his total plays of 20-plus yards, not just air yards, he had a total of 16 catches of 20-plus yards for 470 yards. 16. 40%. I want you to, if you've been tuning out of me, because I've been talking for half an hour now, if you've been tuning in and out, I want to get you right here. And I want you to really let this sink in. 40% of Malik Nabers' yards came on 60 catches out of his 109 catches. 40% of Malik Nabers' yards came on 14% of his catches. 40% of his yards came on just 14% of his catches. The juice that we saw out of Malik Nabers at LSU. Why did you get excited about Malik Nabers coming out of school? Oh my God. Jaden Daniels would just put that ball up there for him, running deep, and he would catch it, and then nobody would be able to catch him after that. And then even if he catches, no matter where he catches the ball on the football field, no one is catching him. He's breaking tackles because he's strong, he's fast, and he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. And the crazy thing is that Malik Nabers had the rookie season that he had last year. 109 catches, 170 targets, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns in 15 games, playing, what's the snaps? 886 snaps. 15 games, 1,200 yards, 109 catches. He had that, and again, I don't feel like we saw what made him great and elite at LSU. We didn't see it. We saw him run really awesome intermediate routes. We saw him get open. And not the ways that he was kind of used to getting open at LSU for the magic stuff. We didn't see the magic stuff from Malik Nabers. Do you want to know when Malik Nabers had his first play of 40-plus yards? He had his first play of 40-plus yards December 29th against the Indianapolis Colts. 59-yard touchdown. That was the screen that he took from Drew Lock. He had his second play of 40 yards against the Eagles. Final game of the season. 45-yard touchdown. It's a little bit of semantics because on September 26th, he had, a 39-yard play in the Cowboy game. But, you hear this coaching staff. I talk about explosive plays a lot, like 20-plus yards. Mike Kafka and Brian Dable, if you hear them talk about explosive plays, a lot of the times they'll talk about plays of 40-plus yards. Like 40-plus yards. Like that really flips the script. That really, 40-plus yards touchdowns, or that you want to talk about really flipping the script. 40-plus yards is how you freaking do it. So they talk a lot about 40. Well, I consider an explosive play to be 20-plus yards. He had 2 plays of 40-plus yards last year, and none of them came until 3 fucking days before the end of the year, the calendar year. That's crazy. And he still had an insane rookie year. I think I'm doing this for the stat prediction episode like I talked about in the beginning of the show. I think he would have been second in the NFL in receiving yards if on a 17-game rate. Second or third in the NFL in receiving yards on a 17-game rate. And he obviously didn't play 17 games because he missed a couple games with a concussion, and he battled apparently a toe injury to end the year last year. He was battling for a good chunk of the year towards the end last year, where like I would come on this show after games and I'd be like, man, the respect that I have for Malik Nabers, because I'm at the games and I'm able to watch him get up from getting tackled, and he's hurting. Like, he's hurting and he's out there and he's busting his ass, and the team fucking sucks. But he's busting his ass and he's hurt and he's giving it his all for the team. And that's like where respect grows for a player. And like, that's how, like, you want to know how you fall in love with the player as a fan? Shit like that, right? So Malik Nabers having better quality over quantity this year, and more 20-plus yard plays, more 40-yard plays, being targeted, having more than 5 20-plus air yard catches. He was targeted 24 times, and if you look at the targets, they're comical. They're comical. I think one of the best throws that he got last year, 20-plus air yards, was the Tim Boyle throw. The 23-yard Tim Boyle touchdown against the Ravens in garbage time was one of the best throws that he got. Back shoulder, where Malik Nabers is able to start to backpedal, and like the only way that anybody was going to catch that ball is if it's located perfectly and Nabers turns around. It was a really good throw by Tim Boyle. That's one of the better throws that Malik Nabers had on like a deep play opportunity. So hopefully with better quarterback play, there's better yak. There's more dynamic plays. There's more, we're catching a screen, we're catching a short pass, we're catching an intermediate route, we're catching a crosser going across the field. We know Brian Dable likes to call those deep crossers, did a lot in 2022. And getting yards after the catch. Hopefully there's more of that. Hopefully there's more, hey, you're going to have Russell Wilson moonball opportunities. And Malik Nabers is beating guys at the release. And, if you play a single high safety, or if there's not a safety that's shadowing Malik Nabers, then that should be an automatic opportunity for Nabers to win at the line. And then Russell Wilson is putting that deep ball up. So I think this is a huge, huge X factor this year, heading into this year. How can Malik Nabers get better? It's by simply doing the stuff that he can do, that he did at LSU, that we knew that he was going to be good at it in the NFL. And the crazy thing is that he didn't even get a chance to show that off last year. Didn't even get a chance, which is crazy. And that's how I think he can get better. All right, before we move on to X Factor number 5, I got to talk to you about DraftKings. This episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Baseball fans, summer is in full swing and the season is heating up. From midseason rivalries to breakout performances, every game is packed with drama. There's no better time to jump in with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers, if you bet $5, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use our promo code JAMFOOTBALL. Bet $5 on any wager, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code JAMFOOTBALL only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And it's that time where the lights turn off in a recording studio after 40 minutes. And I'm going to turn them back on. You're going to watch. See how fast that was? Want to see me run to that rock and back? Want to see me do it again? SpongeBob. All right, jokes aren't that funny when you're alone. Number 5, X Factor number 5. This is a little bit of a visual, and I'm going to describe it for podcast people and YouTube people. You're going to see it, and you're going to understand it. Jaxson Dart timeline. Being prepared for the season. Handshake emoji. Those two things need to comfortably meet each other this year. Jaxson Dart timeline, being prepared for the season, handshake emoji. Here's what we're talking about. The Browns, Saints, Titans, Jets, and Giants, they're all teams that are sitting at 5.5. Speaking of DraftKings, they're all teams that are sitting at 5.5 over-under for wins total in the NFL. No NFL team has an over-under less than 5.5. And the only game this season that the Giants are favored in is the Saints game. Okay, so that's some context. The under is not a possibility for the Giants this year. It is not. In order for us to feel like this regime is headed in the right direction, people talk about culture and establishing it every year when things get bad. Winning is the culture. And every year we talk about how important the start of the season is. Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers. Those teams are no joke. And kind of learned today, typing out notes, that we're playing teams that all start with the letter C through the first 4 weeks of the season. So that's no joke either, because it's true. It's a fact. Disappointed isn't even the right word to describe how I have felt as a fan about how the Giants have been prepared to start the season for the last 2 seasons. 2023, they treated training camp like a straight-up fucking country club. They thought they were hot shit because of the year prior. Then the Cowboys punched them in the mouth week 1, and then the season was virtually over from there. Like, legitimately, that 2023 team, I think the season was shot the second they lost 40-0. They thought they were hot shit. They got punched in the mouth, and they never punched back. Last year's camp did feel better and more physical. Like, they even gave the Lions a good old wake-up call in their couple of days of joint practices. Dan Campbell even talked about that. Like one of those behind-the-scenes documentaries, like, or maybe it was even a press conference where he was like, yeah, we got punched in the mouth by the Giants, and then we kind of woke up from there. It's like, all right, cool. Well, hang the banner. But they went into the season with the Giants did. They went to the season with the QB who was shot, and I don't even think they believed in to begin with. So this coaching staff has to know that their preparation for the start of the season the last 2 years just has not worked. Like, whatever they've done, it has not worked. And I think it's more than the QB. Like, last year provided some flashes of good in some areas. The offense, like I said, was at least moving the ball. The defense was getting sacks. But you walk away from the first 2 games of the year being 0-2. One game where you get punched in the mouth by the Minnesota Vikings and don't even look competitive. It's 2 years in a row where your week 1 game, you don't even look competitive. Yeah, you're playing good teams, right? I get it, you're playing good teams. Nobody thought the Vikings would be that good. They turn into that good, right? But I just don't think it's an excuse to be non-competitive. Non-competitive where you don't even look like you're ready to play. And then you lose a game week 2 against the Commanders because your kicker's hurt and then shit, the season's over. So being prepared for the season, being prepared for the start of the season, and being ready to play competitive football from the start is absolutely imperative this year. Their preparation and process, I put that in quotes, it can't just be status quo and, yeah, we're going to do what we always do, because it just hasn't worked. Something has to be different about it. I don't know, like, what it is. I'm not in the building. I'm not a coach. I'm not a football guy. I'm a talk about football guy, not a coach football guy or be about it football guy, right? But week 1 for the last 2 years has been deflating as it possibly can be, where you get so excited for the season. You know, every year you break the download record of the week 1 podcast. The week one show always breaks the record every year. It's like your biggest. Where I identify like the biggest growth points of the year for like me professionally, you know, like the draft, free agency, training camp, and week 1. And week 1 is the biggest. And for the last 2 years as Giants fans, for how excited we've been heading into a season, it just as quickly has been stripped and taken away from us. And that cannot happen this year. It cannot happen. Which brings me to Jaxson Dart. Everything will, of course, snowball depending on how they start the season in terms of the ramp up to Jaxson Dart. How they start off, it's going to, depend if that ramp up to Jaxson Dart will be an avalanche that's just totally out of control and you're running away from, or something that can maybe set them up for success down the road, whether that be this year or even in the years upcoming. There's already pressure on Jaxson Dart to play, and when is he going to get in? We've talked about it all offseason, and we're going to continue to talk about it more. And I don't even want to fully talk about that now because we're going to talk about that all camp. If the Giants and Russell Wilson can be prepared to start this season and not have it be over by mid-October, that makes me feel better about Jackson's Dart future for multiple reasons. One, he won't be thrown into a shitty situation out of desperation. And two, he can continue to develop, which is what he needs to do. And there is a track record now in the NFL of quarterbacks that may be a little bit raw, that may not be the perfect prospects if they stay on the bench and they learn how to be a pro. You know, it gives them a better shot to succeed versus being thrown into a shitty situation where really it's almost like 1A and 1B for me. I don't think Jaxson Dart is ready as a prospect. I don't think he's ready to go in and play. But just as much as I don't think Jaxson Dart is ready to play as a prospect, I 100% don't think he's ready to play in a shitty situation. Like, let's just say the Giants are 2-8. They're 2-8 after 10 weeks. All right, well, we're going to put Jaxson Dart in now. Like, that doesn't excite me. Like, or I'm going to be excited to see him. Yeah, I'll be excited to see him because it's new and it's different and it's a guy that they drafted in the first round and it's a guy that they believe in. All right, cool, let's see it. But I'm not thrilled for Jaxson Dart that he's going to be thrusted into a situation where they're 2-8, or even worse if they're 2-6, whatever the record is. If there's a certain situation where Jaxson Dart's going to be put in there before the bye week, it's not because things are fucking great. It's not because things are wow, we're hoeing and humming. That's not going to be the case, man. So that's what makes me a little worried. The being prepared to start the season, it meets the Jaxson Dart timeline by if they do what they got to do through the first 2 months of the season, they win some football games that they're not expected to. Beat the freaking Saints because you have to, and it's the only game that you're favored in on your schedule. Win some games in your division. Take one against Washington. Take one against Dallas. Take fucking both. I don't know. Fuck around and find out. Being prepared to start the season is inevitably going to help out the Jaxson Dart timeline. Because I do not think, and hey, maybe Jaxson Dart gets out there, shocks the world, and he's awesome from the start. Cool, that'd be sick. But setting Jaxson Dart up for success is not going 2-8 in your first 10 games and then putting him in there because Brian Dable and Joe Shane need to save their jobs. That's not setting the kid up for success. You want to know what's setting the kid up for success? Hey, what do we have? 13 games? We have 13 games before the bye because the bye is week 14. We're 6-8. Let's just say we're 6-8. And maybe we reached a point at the bye and we're like, all right, well, Russell Wilson we've seen everything that we need to see. I don't know if we're going to make the playoffs, but maybe this Jaxson Dart can give us a spark. And that's where, the Brian Dable, we needed a spark there. He said that phrase a lot. But if you're 6-8, I don't know, even if you're 5-9, I feel like that's not the worst. Maybe that's not the worst situation to, or 5-9. It'd be it would be 5-8. Even if you're 5-8, I don't know if that's the worst situation to walk into, right? I don't know. It'd be 6-7. I'm a fucking idiot trying to do math on the fly. I'm sorry, but you get my point. Putting Jaxson Dart in there when you're 2-8, or if you have a horrible record, and all right, everybody, we need to save our jobs now. So here's Jaxson Dart. That's not going to make me feel awesome about his future. But if there's a good ramp-up period to him, whether that happens this year or even ideally next year, that would make me feel good. And it all coincides with being prepared to start the season and the season not being over once again by mid-October. Because every year, that's my main ask as a fan. Do not have the season be over by the time the middle of October comes. All right, that's an episode. We'll see you next week. Back to doing twice a week. I'll see you at training camp. I think the next time you're going to hear us, it's going to be the Giants' official stat line prediction show. For Russell Wilson, for Tyrone Tracy, for Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Darius Slayton. Will we do Theo Johnson? We won't do everybody, but the significant players on the team. Ooh, Wan'Dale Robinson's line is going to be fun to. That's going to be fun to think about. Will Wan'Dale Robinson have 100 catches for 700 yards again? Stay tuned and find out. All right, we'll see you next week. Let's go Giants. Take it away, Joey. See you next week. Thanks for watching.
It starts today. Let's go Giants! We woo!